The hotel room that didn't exist. Rain hammered against the windshield as Daniel drove through a lonely mountain road. It was almost 11:50 p.m., and he had been driving for more than 7 hours. His eyes burned with exhaustion. "Just one night," he whispered. "I only need a place to sleep." Through the thick fog, an old neon sign slowly appeared. Riverwood Hotel. The flickering lights buzzed weakly, as if they were struggling to stay alive. Daniel pulled into the parking lot. The hotel looked old, but strangely well kept. It was the only building for miles. As he stepped inside, something immediately felt wrong. The lobby was completely silent. No music, no television, not even the sound of the rain. Behind a reception desk sat an elderly man wearing a gray suit. Without looking up from his old guest book, he calmly said, "Welcome, Mr. Daniel." Daniel froze.
The hotel room. Daniel froze. "I'm sorry, have we met before?" The old man slowly smiled. "We always know when our guests are coming." A cold chill ran down Daniel's back. The receptionist placed a heavy brass key on the counter.
"Room 307. Just before Daniel picked it up, the old man spoke again. "There is only one rule." Daniel forced a small laugh. "What rule?" "No matter what happens," the old man's smile disappeared. "After 2 a.m., never open your door." Daniel nodded awkwardly. Sure. He assumed it was just an old man's strange joke. But somehow, it didn't feel like one. The hallway on the 3rd floor seemed impossibly long, much longer than the hotel looked from outside. The faded red carpet muffled every footstep. Half of the ceiling lights were dead. At the very end of the hallway stood room 307. Inside, everything looked perfectly normal. A comfortable bed, a wooden desk, a small lamp, a window overlooking a dark forest. Daniel took a hot shower and collapsed onto the bed. Within minutes, he was asleep. 2:03 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. Daniel's eyes snapped open. Silence. Then, knock, knock. A young woman's voice came from the hallway. "Excuse me, can you help me?" Daniel immediately remembered the receptionist's warning. Don't open the door. He stayed perfectly still. The voice returned. "I think I'm at the wrong room." Another pause. Then, "Please, I'm scared." Daniel slowly walked toward the door. His hand reached for the handle, but something stopped him. Instead, he looked through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was empty, yet the voice was still right outside. "Please, I know you're there." Daniel stepped back. His heart pounded in his chest. After several long minutes, the knocking finally stopped. The next morning, Daniel hurried downstairs. The old receptionist looked at him. "You didn't open the door, did you?" Daniel shook his head. "No." For the first time, the old man smiled with genuine relief. "Good." Daniel frowned. Who was outside my room? The receptionist ignored the question. Instead, he handed Daniel the bill. Daniel glanced down. Then his face turned pale. Under the room number, it read, Room 307. Occupied since 1986. He looked up. What does that mean? The old man said nothing. As Daniel walked toward the exit, something caught his attention. An old black and white photograph hung on the wall. It showed the hotel staff standing together. His eyes locked onto one familiar face. The receptionist. Exactly the same. Same gray suit, same smile, same face. Beneath the photograph was a small brass plaque. Hotel manager, 1938, 1986. Daniel felt his blood run cold. He rushed back to the reception desk. It was empty. No guest book, no brass key, no receptionist. Only dust. Daniel jumped into his car and drove away as fast as he could. About 30 minutes later, he stopped at a small gas station. Trying to calm himself, he told the elderly cashier about the strange hotel. The man's expression immediately changed. The Riverwood Hotel? Yes. The cashier slowly shook his head. That's impossible. Why? That hotel burned down over 20 years ago. Daniel laughed nervously. No, I stayed there last night. Without saying a word, the cashier turned his computer screen. There was an old newspaper photo. It showed the Riverwood Hotel completely destroyed by fire. Only blackened ruins remained. Daniel couldn't believe it. He drove back to prove everyone wrong. When he reached the same location, the hotel was gone. There was nothing except burned ruins covered in weeds. No lights, no parking lot, no guests. Just silence. He slowly walked through the remains of the building. The place where the lobby should have been was now only broken walls. Then, something shiny caught his eye beneath the ashes. He reached down. It was a burned brass key. The number engraved on it made his hands tremble. 307. It was the same key he had carried in his pocket the night before. Only now, it looked as though it had been sitting there for decades. Daniel never returned to that road again. Months later, while organizing the photos from his trip, he noticed one picture he had never taken. It showed the third-floor hallway. Dark, endless. At the far end stood the young woman in a white dress. Beside her was the smiling receptionist. On the wall behind them hung a sign Daniel had never seen before. It read, "Thank you for staying with us." Beneath those words, another sentence slowly came into focus. Next time, don't ignore the knocking. At that exact moment, from somewhere inside Daniel's apartment, 3 slow knocks echoed through the silence. Knock, knock, knock. And this time, they were coming from his bedroom door.